WOVU LP Cleveland.
Good afternoon, listeners. We are broadcasting live from WOVU 95.9 FM. I'm Trey Modlin, news director here at WOVU, and we have another great program for you today on the topic of free eviction help. We have representatives in studio from the Legal Aid Society of Cleveland and the United Way of Greater Cleveland. They will answer questions about free eviction help and talk about tomorrow's phone bank from 5 to 7 p.m. And talk about tomorrow's phone bank from 5 to 6:30 p.m. So you'll want to definitely tune in and hear more about that. And now I'm going to introduce our guests and give their bios. First, we have Julie Wisniewski, the Director of Housing Stability at the United Way of Greater Cleveland. She leads the housing branch of United Way of Greater Cleveland's community investment team, overseeing the Right to Counsel and Free Eviction Help, Cymer Family Stability Initiative, Let's Save Cleveland Coalition, and other areas where housing expertise is needed. She has over 12 years of experience in social programming for adults and families, with a focus in the areas of housing and workforce. Ms. Wisniewski brings a perspective that blends public and private sector collaboration to apply for and dispense public dollars to impact areas of health and human services. She earned both her BSW and MSW from the University of Kentucky. Go Wildcats. We also have Damari Muff, staff attorney at the Legal Aid Society of Cleveland. Damari Muff, ESQ, joined Legal Aid Housing Practice Group in 2020, and his focus is helping tenants avoid eviction and secure housing stability, specifically through Legal Aid's Free Eviction Help program. He has a passion for social justice, equitable housing solutions, and the community. Damari is a co-coach of the Case Western Reserve University School of Law Black Law Students Association mock trial team and is actively involved in Let's Save advocacy in the city of Cleveland. He earned his JD from Case Western Reserve University School of Law in 2020 and his BS from Ohio University, where he studied journalism. Go Bobcats. Well, how are you guys doing today?
Great. Thanks, Trey.
Doing well. Thank you.
Well, thank you guys for being on. This is going to be, as I mentioned at the top, free eviction help is the topic because we're in some pretty tough times, not just during the pandemic, but there's been a lot of people struggling with this pre-pandemic as well. It's well documented there. So we have a list of 10 questions, and we may go even further as well. And before we get into the questions, I also want to let you guys in the audience know whether you're streaming online on WOVU.org, on our free mobile app that you can download very easily on your iPhones, or you're listening in your cars on the terrestrial radio 95.9 FM. They are available to take calls live on air. Call us on the studio at 216-271-0959, and they're ready to go answer your questions. So, keep those calls coming if you have a question for them at some point during the program, this 1 hour program. So this first question is for you, Julie. What resources are available if someone cannot pay their rent?
Thanks, Trey. So the topic of today is free eviction help. And free eviction help is an initiative that Legal Aid Society of Cleveland and the United Way of Greater Cleveland are co-leading to provide free legal representation to those who qualify throughout Cuyahoga County. Legal representation in housing court for eviction cases, most notably. Now, what I want to talk about are how these resources can help you and what else is out there. So if you are facing uncertainty in your housing situation, let's say you can't pay next month's rent, you might be behind this month's rent, you might be splitting your paycheck between utilities, rent, childcare, food, all of the above. You may not have received a formal eviction notice yet, but you are facing uncertainty. We want you to call Legal Aid or 211 to get connected to these services. What Legal Aid can do is they can provide you with full, high-quality legal representation in housing court so you don't have to move, or if you wanted to move, you would be given more time to do so. These legal services are so important they can really help you avoid eviction, avoid that, kind of mark on your record of eviction, and get you into a stable housing that you want to be at for you and your family. Now, the other services out there that I want to talk about are rental assistance. So CHN Housing Partners is a wonderful organization that both Legal Aid and United Way work with. And they are providing rental assistance to those who qualify, which if you are unable to pay your rent due to COVID or job loss, we really want you to call them and apply. You can get in touch with them by calling 211. 211 can help you apply for that rental assistance. You can get as much back rent as you can possibly imagine. I mean, there are people who are able to get up to $7,000 in back rent paid. So don't be afraid. Don't think that you don't qualify. All you have to do is call. And I'm telling you, the people that have been helped are sharing their stories, and they're saying they're so glad they called, both 211 and Legal Aid, because now their housing situation is no longer a concern.
No, that's really good information. So I'll just reiterate that as well. If you need help with rental assistance, call 211 because, like Julie Wisniewski just said, you can get up to $7,000 in rental assistance. Now, if you're not sure whether you are eligible, or even if you don't know, or if you just want to ask questions, call rental assistance at 211. That's really good information. Now, sticking with
Trey, I'm sorry. I just want to clarify. I'm so sorry.
Go ahead.
Not everyone will get $7,000.
Right.
However, we have heard from folks that have been helped that in extreme circumstances, if you do qualify, that type of rental assistance has been paid out. So again, the average amount of rental assistance of rent that people have owed and is about $1,200.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's a varying range, but again, we're still asking people, don't be afraid, just call.
No, that's really good. And I appreciate the clarification and for correcting me. So, cause that's something to know. It's not guaranteed, but again, if you're not sure, if you think, if you really need help with rental assistance, call 211. Now, sticking with Julie, if someone does receive an eviction notice in the mail, what should they do? I'll repeat the question because I botched it a little bit. If someone receives an eviction notice in the mail, what should they do?
So here we go. Here's what you do. You get an eviction notice in the mail. You call 211 immediately. Here's why. 211 is easy to remember. They have direct access to legal aid, so they can actually submit your intake for legal services 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. A legal aid attorney will then be in touch with you.
Mm-hmm.
What I want to express, and I want everyone to remember this isn't just legal advice. This is full representation in housing court cases, in eviction cases. So these attorneys at Legal Aid they're fantastic. They're passionate. They do quality work, and they have supported tenants listening and established and secured housing for families in Cleveland and in Cuyahoga County. And I really think that you just need to remember, as a listener, if you are facing eviction or you haven't even gotten that eviction notice yet, you need to call and see what they can do for you. And the sooner you call, the more they can build a case for you to represent you in court.
No, that's really good. So if you get an eviction notice, or even if you haven't, and your situation's uncertain, call 211 rental assistance. Absolutely. That's real good. Now, this next question is for you, Damari, because there is no longer an eviction moratorium. So what does this mean?
So the eviction moratorium was a policy that was in place that basically kept renters in their units during this pandemic and this terrible crisis. However, in early September, the moratorium was overruled. With that, hundreds and thousands of tenants have become vulnerable to an eviction. Most importantly, they've lost that comfort and the stability of their housing situation. They've become vulnerable. I think another aspect of the moratorium no longer being in effect is that tenants have also lost time to access the available resource, such as the free eviction help and rental assistance. But it's still out there and it's still available for people to utilize and access.
Yeah, it's still available to access, and it's wasn't eviction moratorium in place, no longer the case. But and the whole point of this thing is just to let you guys know what you can do for to try to get advice, or in this case also legal counsel for. Well, I want to be clear. Something you mentioned off the top is there's so much you can say about that. We talked about in the pre-show, but but these resources are available to you guys to to seek help. Now, speaking of legal help, though, this next question is still for you. If someone is still facing eviction, how can legal aid help? And what does legal representation look like?
So now that the moratorium is no longer in place, it's important more than ever that people contact legal aid and 211 for help. When they contact legal aid for help, what we can do as attorneys for legal aid, we can provide you with full representation in court, and we can help walk you through your eviction process. So essentially, we can offer defenses to try to keep you in your house. We can try to coordinate with your landlord and opposing counsel to come to some type of agreement where you're able to access that rental assistance and stay in your home. We're all about keeping our tenants in their home and trying to avoid that eviction judgment. We're also able to walk you through the rental assistance process. I've had clients who have applied for rental assistance and haven't been able to necessarily complete it on their own, but I, as an attorney, will take the time to try to help them and keep up with that rental assistance to make sure that they're able to get through the process and that they're able to obtain a favorable outcome. And I would say more on the topic of what does legal representation look like at legal aid and how we can be of assistance. Basically, when you call legal aid, you'll go through the intake process, whether it's with someone on the phone, or you can apply online and we'll get back to you in 24 to 48 hours. After that, it is assigned to an attorney, and basically we take your case, we interview you, we learn more about your situation, and then we proceed to do our best to represent you in court and to avoid you being evicted and to try to keep you housed.
That's really good information, and we're going to take a quick break, about 2 minutes in length, in order to continue learning about these resources. So stay tuned for some PSAs from here at WOVU, and we will be right back with the United Way of Greater Cleveland and the Legal Aid Society of Cleveland. Stay tuned.
Are you a renter in Cleveland and facing eviction? WOVU 95.9 FM, the United Way of Greater Cleveland, and the Legal Aid Society wants you to know that you have rights. Certain Cleveland families have the right to an attorney in eviction cases. If you rent your home in Cleveland, have any kids living in that home, and meet low-income guidelines, free help is available. If you think you qualify, contact Legal Aid immediately at 216-687-1900. That's 216-687-1900. You can also apply by dialing 211 on your phone. After a quick screening, you'll know if you can get a lawyer's help for free. Learn more at freeevictionhelp.org. That's freeevictionhelp.org. This message is brought to you by the Legal Aid Society of Cleveland, the United Way of Greater Cleveland, and WOVU 95.9 FM. Our Voices United, a Burton Bell Carr community radio station.
That's right. If you need any help with eviction, you need to call 211. That number is 211, where you can get consultation from the Legal Aid Society of Cleveland, United Way of Greater Cleveland. Anything that you need to do in order to, get the assistance you need, whether or not you've received an eviction notice in the mail. So that's all really important. Just a reminder too, that if you have a question at any point during the program, call us at WOVU at 216-271-0959, 216-271-0959. So I'm News Director Trey Modlin here, and we are speaking about free eviction help, with Julie Wisniewski, Director of Housing and Stability at the United Way of Greater Cleveland, and Damari Muff, Staff Attorney at the Legal Aid Society of Cleveland. So we want to continue on with this great discussion. And the next question is still for you, Damari. So tell us more about why getting legal help is important. And what are some current outcomes you and your fellow legal aid attorneys are seeing?
Getting legal help through your eviction process is invaluable. It's important that you have an attorney to walk you through the process and guide you through the process in court and to navigate this tricky situation. I think for most of us who aren't familiar with the court system, it's scary and it's intimidating, but you have access to an attorney here at Legal Aid who can help guide you through the process. And I would also like to say that it's important because we're talking about your home. Your home and housing is important, and that's important to you, but it's also important to us. It's important to us because we value that stability in the community. Also, legal representation at Legal Aid, it's important because we don't want to see tenants who have the ability to get caught up on rent, the ability to stay in place, be displaced. And here at Legal Aid, we represented a bunch of clients throughout the pandemic, and we've been able to get them some favorable outcomes, whether it's additional time to move out or whether it's keeping them in their home, which is the most important thing, and getting them caught up on rent and connecting them with other resources that'll benefit them and keep them stably housed.
No, Trey, let me just jump in too and share some actual like data points.
Please do.
In the past year, 94% of tenants represented by Legal Aid were able to remain in their home, so they were not evicted. They were able to work with the landlord to get back rent, to mediate and come to terms with whatever lease agreement that they come up with their landlord, with the help of a legal aid attorney. Almost 90% of those represented who wanted to move were given more time to do so. So they were not evicted, but maybe they just wanted to move. Maybe they didn't, maybe there were conditions issues in the unit and they just wanted to go somewhere different. They were able to. So not only is Legal Aid helping avoid eviction, they're helping establish and build a relationship with your landlord. Maybe it gets better. Maybe with legal representation, Legal Aid can make sure that now you have a better relationship. Oftentimes in housing court, and Damari, correct me if I'm wrong, I work with a lot of attorneys, so this is, what they tell me, is that landlords often come to housing court with an attorney. And before this program, barely any tenants would come with an attorney. Sometimes tenants wouldn't even show up to housing court. It was just easier to move, right? It was just easier to move, to get out.
Yes.
But
Yeah, most landlords show up with an attorney, and that may seem like an unfair advantage, but you can kind of even the odds by contacting Legal Aid and getting this free legal representation with your housing case.
Yeah, thank you for that stat, Julie. That is astounding. 94% of cases of evictions within the past year were prevented just by consulting, right? And that's a big deal. And then 90% of people, and it's not just like you have alluded to, the 90% of people who just wanted to move. I mean, so that tells me it wasn't just about having a place to live. It was, like you said, maybe environmental factors make you want to move from one street or one house on one street to another where there are better conditions.
Sure.
Yeah, or maybe you just want to, it could be school related. Maybe you want to put your kids in a different school system, or it could literally be anything. You have to move closer to work. So it's not just dealing with people with pending evictions or the threat. It's also helping, people who just want to move in general. And that's really good. That's like a multimodal purpose there. That's really valuable information, valuable statistic. Thanks for that.
Sure, of course.
But we're going to stick. This next question is going to be for Damari. What is the difference between a formal and an informal eviction? And what should someone do if they are experiencing an informal eviction?
So I'll start with what is an informal eviction, because that's something that we all like. It's like the monster under our bed. It's something that we just like we fear as tenants and as people living in properties that are rented. Informal evictions are, what we call self-help evictions, when your landlord just comes in and demands that you're out of the property and threatens to put your stuff on the curb the next day if you're not out. These self-help evictions are not allowed in Ohio. There's a formal process, and that leads me into what is a formal eviction. A formal eviction is the proper process. Your landlord is required to provide you with a 30-day or a 3-day notice in any case, and you're required to have your day in court before you are evicted and removed from your property. If you are experiencing an informal eviction, I recommend that you call 211 or you get in contact with legal aid by doing an online intake. But it's important that you get legal help to keep you housed and to avoid this informal eviction, and that you're able to exercise your rights.
All right. So just to paraphrase or summarize what you said, an informal eviction is where the landlord just threatens you without a formal letter, without anything official. A formal eviction is that 3-day or 30-day, or whatever the time frame is. Then you have to appear in front of a judge in court for that to go through. But the informal eviction, or the self-help eviction as it's termed, is illegal in Ohio, correct?
Yeah, it is not a formal process. There is a method in which your landlord is supposed to give you notice and you're supposed to have your day in court. That is how evictions work. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a really good breakdown too. So informal, it's more like a monster in the bed, or the shadow of an eviction, where it's nothing formal, nothing documented. Formal eviction is the infamous, court date, documents, sign on your door. So, yeah, great breakdown there. Now, this question is for you, Julie. What kind of programs do you have in place for those living outside of the city of Cleveland who do not have a legal right to counsel when facing evictions?
That's a great question, Trey. So as viewers may know, listeners may know, right to counsel is an actual legislated right in the city of Cleveland that guarantees free legal representation to those who qualify in Cleveland Housing Court. That is a great, great piece of legislation that is actually passed by Cleveland City Council, that exists, that is not going away. What Legal Aid and United Way have done, though, is we've expanded free eviction help to Cuyahoga County. It is not a legal right yet. It is not a piece of legislation passed yet. We're working on that, but there is funding for services now. So the time is now. There is funding to assist people, and we're asking them to call as soon as they know that their housing is in danger or they have an eviction. We are hoping that this expansion of legal services will continue on for years to come, and that we could eventually have it as a right throughout Cuyahoga County. That would really ensure that renters outside of Cleveland can have these protections. And we found, Trey, that having these legal services improves court process overall. So this way, it actually improves the relationship with landlords. People live in their communities longer. Their kids can go to the same school. They can shop at the same stores they go to normally. They can have their neighbors. They can stay. They don't have to hop around from place to place to place. This is a real investment in the community. So we're asking that, those who are public officials and those who have a voice to speak up about this. This is so important. And those of you who have been helped, if you're a listener and you've been helped by this, call us to tell your story, because we want to hear that this has helped you and how this has helped you, so others know to call.
Yeah, that's good. With the free eviction help available to people in Cuyahoga County, whether they actually live in Cleveland city limits or not. And absolutely, the bigger picture, that's not just about keeping people in houses, but in the same schools, establishing friendships, being able to extracurricular activities, particularly with families with children and who are very active, because like I'm lucky. I've never had to move outside of Shaker, but a lot of people can't say that. And I would like, I don't know what it's, so I don't know what it's like to have to move just for a regular, just because a parent's job may have to shift from time to time or anything. That's beyond eviction. So again, going back to the part where about not dealing with just people facing eviction, but people just wanting to move, or the opposite in this case, not wanting to move. Now, this next question is for you, and after this, we'll go to a quick break. How can people learn more if they need help?
Right. So we've talked about calling 211. 211 has back access to legal aid, so they can start an intake process. And that phone number is available 24/7, 7 days a week. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And the other resource we have that I really urge people to look into is our website. It's freeevictionhelp.org. So if you're just curious, what do we offer? What does it look like? Are you eligible? Is your zip code eligible? We have all that on the website. You can put in your zip code. It asks you 2 simple questions, and then it has 211 and legal aid's direct number. So, lots of access. There's a list of frequently asked questions. I personally love when websites have frequently asked questions, because there's a lot I don't know. I never knew as a renter that I had rights, that I had protections. I didn't know, could I get a security deposit back? Questions like that we have on there for people. Again, but you can also walk yourself through the eligibility to make sure you qualify. But even if you don't qualify, we still want you to call, because I have a feeling there is something we can do for you.
And absolutely. And just to remind the audience, and a number that you referenced, 94% of cases, of people facing evictions that used help, were able to save their homes, were able to be able to avoid eviction. Like, that's a big number. So if you're listening and you're in doubt, or you don't know what your situation, give them a call. Call 211. Visit the website at freeevictionhelp.org. freeevictionhelp.org. And definitely check out the FAQ. I've visited the website. It's there's a lot of information there, but it's they have their phone number as well if anything else is unclear. So that's a lot of great resources here. Now we're going to take another break, and coming out of the break, we'll finish up with the questions and provide you more details about tomorrow's phone bank from 5 to 6:30 p.m. So stay tuned.
Are you a renter in Cleveland and facing eviction? WOVU 95.9 FM, the United Way of Greater Cleveland, and the Legal Aid Society wants you to know that you have rights. Certain Cleveland families have the right to an attorney in eviction cases. If you rent your home in Cleveland, have any kids living in that home, and meet low-income guidelines, free help is available. If you think you qualify, contact Legal Aid immediately at 216-687-1900. That's 216-687-1900. You can also apply by dialing 211 on your phone. After a quick screening, you'll know if you can get a lawyer's help for free. Learn more at freeevictionhelp.org. That's freeevictionhelp.org. This message is brought to you by the Legal Aid Society of Cleveland, the United Way of Greater Cleveland, and WOVU 95.9 FM, Our Voices United, a Burton Bell Carr community radio station.
That's right. That is the number 211 to consult help from the Legal Aid Society of Cleveland and the United Way of Greater Cleveland as well. So definitely get those calls going. If you're not sure about your eviction situation, whether you've gotten a mail, or if you're not sure, if you think you're on the verge of potentially getting evicted, give them a call, 211. And you can also visit freeevictionhelp.org. That's freeevictionhelp.org, where you can find plenty of information in order to get your questions answered and find out if you could be eligible for assistance. So we are back here on WOVU 95.9 FM. I'm Trey Modlin, News Director, and we are talking about free eviction help with Julie Wisniewski, Director of Housing Stability at the United Way of Greater Cleveland, and Damari Muff, Staff Attorney at the Legal Aid Society of Cleveland. So let's continue on with the next question, and this one is for you, Julie. How can someone contact legal aid if they need help with an eviction?
So, as we've said before, calling 211 is your best route because, again, it's 24/7. There's always someone available to talk to, and they're knowledgeable. They know what legal aid has to offer. They know what other service providers in the community have to offer. One thing I want to highlight is the importance of, calling for help and getting these services, because oftentimes when you're facing eviction or housing instability, there's other things going on. Right. So not only in the home with, conditions issues, or you may owe money on utilities, there might be things going on like that. You might also have things going on like, you may not, you may have lost your job. You may need help with job search. You may need help with getting your kids' school uniforms. You may need help with transportation or with, an elderly relative. Nothing is off limits when you call 211. And this isn't just a call center. 211 at United Way is a full support counselor that talks to you and walks you through steps and needs that you may have. And again, you may have your housing solved. Let's say you get resolved, but what about you need your car fixed, or you need, you want to enroll your kid in singing lessons or in piano, whatever. United Way 211 can help. And I think the complexity of some of these cases really shows that it's not just one time, it's not just an eviction, it could be other things. And we really hope that people call. The pandemic is a very difficult time for a lot of people. Not only is there economic instability, but there's mental concern. We're all having different emotions. We're feeling differently. You might be isolated. You might need to talk to someone. And 211 can get you in touch with someone that you trust, who's in your community that you could talk to. Maybe there's someone at your church you don't know who is a counselor. Maybe you need family counseling. So there's all these types of things that I really want people to call about. And there's no judgment. It's confidential. Your information is not shared. And they follow up with you via text, phone, email, whatever you need. So,
yeah, that's good. Really establishing relationships and putting the trust in, the client that, their information won't be publicized, because I'm sure that's very important to a lot of people. And you mentioned, the more money you can save on their eviction status, the more they can allocate it to other things like, you mentioned activities involving children. I pulled from the United Way of Greater Cleveland's website that 60% of evictions are filed against households with children, and that's a lot. So to be able to get help from them, free eviction, Legal Aid Society, CHN Housing Partners, wherever you get your information from, that's these are key resources to be able to use and rely on. Now, one thing we've been mentioning, teasing throughout the show, has been tomorrow night's phone bank. It's from 5 to 6:30 p.m. Talk about that, and open up the floor for both of you, Damari and Julie.
Yeah, I'll just say, we are having a phone bank with Legal Aid Society of Cleveland and CHN Housing Partners tomorrow from 5 to 7 on TV 19. If you tune in to TV 19 from 5 to 7 tomorrow on Thursday, you'll get the number you can call, and you can ask these questions that you want to know answers to, right? Damari can answer, brief legal advice questions. And if you do qualify, and they could do a screening when you call, then you'll be in touch with an attorney who can actually start to represent you. So it's a really good opportunity to get in touch, to ask those housing questions. Again, a great question to ask CHN housing partners. Am I eligible for rental assistance? I have back rent. I have rent that I know I can't pay in the future. Can I apply for that? Things like that. So again, TV19 tomorrow, Thursday, October 7th from 5 to 7.
All right, 5 to 7, that is. Okay, Thursday, October 7th, 5 to 7 p.m., Cleveland 19 News. All right, great. Anything you wanted to add to that, Tamari?
I'll just say use this as an opportunity to get the information that you need to get that help. It could be the first step into kind of resolving your situation. Like Julie alluded to, you can get questions answered about CHN and the rental assistance process and, what you may qualify for. And I think that's so important. And this is an opportunity to talk with, people who are knowledgeable about this type of assistance and eviction help. So definitely utilize this opportunity tomorrow and tune in.
Yeah, that's real good. So again, Cleveland 19 News, 5 to 7 p.m. for free housing and legal information. And you'll have to tune in for the phone number as well. So great resources there. So I have some other potential other questions here. What are some of the immediate effects of Cleveland's eviction crisis without some kind of action?
So I could take this one, and then Damari, feel free, to step in. So a couple things. When eviction filings go up, when people are getting evicted, where do they go? People can go to the shelter. They can live with a family member. They may live in their car. They may stay at a hotel, a motel. They might be on the street. When they are evicted and don't go to stable housing after the eviction, the rate of homelessness in Cuyahoga County increases. When the shelter population increases, there's a higher demand for space. With COVID, we found that living together in shelter is not safe for the spread of COVID. So housing opportunities and spaces for homeless individuals to live they're available, but as the demand increases, those places will fill up. So we will we will end up having an increase in homelessness population. We don't want that to happen. So think about, and Trey, you said this, right? 60% of families of individuals evicted have children in the home.
Yeah.
So as evictions go up, now we have homeless children. We have unstably housed children. How does that affect education? How does that affect their mental health, their stability? All of these things have trickle-down effects. So I forget the number. I think it was in this was 2019 numbers. In 2019, I think about 2,600 CMSD students were considered homeless. So this is living in shelter, living in a car, or doubled up at a relative or friend's house. So we are trying to get people legal services so they don't have to be evicted, so these downstream effects don't happen. All of these negative consequences could impact children and do impact children when children are evicted.
Yeah, anything you wanted to add to that, Damari?
Yeah, I just kind of want to piggyback off of what Julie said about the impact on children. I mean, if anything, the pandemic highlighted a lot of issues with inequity and access to certain resources. What we saw was when the pandemic happened and the whole homeschooling situation, you needed two things. You needed a home and you needed access to the internet. So the immediate effect of this crisis is that we're seeing that children are being displaced. It's impacting their education, and it's also limiting their opportunities. So it's important that we take this action to keep families, individuals, and children in place so that they can develop and access those opportunities and basically be more equitable.
Yeah, well said, both of you. Yeah, those are, definitely. Yeah, my concern. Obviously, we don't want to see this happen to anybody, but particularly people with children, because now uh, the city has to pump in more resources to help them, and they that could lead to people falling behind in education. And we can imagine where like the societal effects that can cause as well. Um, Now, a couple more questions before we go. Beyond preventing evictions, talk about some of the impact made in right to counsel cases.
I can take this one. Right to Counsel has made a huge impact in the community. Basically, we've been able to keep people housed, but also we've been able to reduce damages. We've been able to get people that rental assistance, and basically we've been able to get them more time, the time they need to access the resources they need to stay housed, to get to a better place, and to ultimately improve their situation. And I would say something else that, Right to Counsel has made an impact in the community on is kind of restored hope. I mean, hope anchors the soul. And I think Right to Counsel, it has given the community hope. If I run into a problem, I have somewhere to turn. I can call 211. I can call legal aid, and I can get this rental assistance at CHN. I can have someone walk me through my court case and help me with the situation.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. So I'll ask this for Julie as well. Beyond preventing evictions, talk about some of the impact made in right to counsel cases. Anything to add to that?
What Damari said was all true. I mean, and okay, so from a non-lawyer perspective, so I am not a lawyer. I'm a social worker from the beginning, but I what I've noticed is that the legal aid attorneys that work on these cases for Right to Counsel and free eviction help are truly good people. They are passionate people. They are providing high quality work. They're working tirelessly with the tenant. They're helping resolve issues that could have those downstream impacts. They're also establishing a relationship with the client, with the landlord, so that you don't have to be afraid of your landlord. You don't have to, hide when they're coming or drive past your place because you see that they're there. So all of these things are keeping people in their homes, in their communities. And I think, Legal Aid and United Way have done great work for so many years. And I think what we just want to keep expressing is that these services are important to the prosperity and the growth of Cleveland and of Cuyahoga County. And we want to see our community thrive. We want to see you as residents, anyone listening, tenants, we want to see you guys do well and support your families and stay in your community and be proud of where you live. And with these services, you can do that. And I think that is above and beyond, what some other cities are doing. I don't know if I mentioned this at the beginning, but the Right to Counsel in Cleveland is a national model that is getting national attention from other cities, other major cities in the country. What United Way and Legal Aid have here is being looked at as the gold standard for providing these services. And we are only the 4th city in the country to do this. So as Clevelanders, you should be proud that we have this, but as Clevelanders, you should take advantage of it.
Yeah, and you said the 4th city in the country to have this type of model. Wow. I mean, definitely, yeah, guys, I know we've been pounding on the table on this today. If you're not sure of your situation, call that number 211, because the fact that Cleveland's one of the first to have this means that every other city, or at least many cities in the country, have followed the model, just shows that other places are looking up to us here, looking up to you guys. So that's definitely a beacon of hope there. The key word there is hope. Now, what's next? What's what other big events are going on? What projects? What are you guys looking forward to next?
Well, and Damari, correct me if I'm wrong, but I like to consider the work that United Way and Legal Aid are doing as we're renegades, right? We're really making the conversation go further. We're to level the playing field. We want representation. We want legislation for renters. We want renter protections. So we are always working to push forward this legislation. So there will be more to come. You will see more in the next in the next 12 to 18 months of the work we're doing to protect renters, to make sure that landlords are made whole, to make sure that these communities that people aren't moving in and out, that, the families that are there and staying there. So we are truly at the forefront of this work, and there's always more to come. And we are going to be on this show when we get legislation passed in Cuyahoga County, and we're going to talk about it. And Trey, you and Jay will be the first we call.
We appreciate it. All right. Anything to add, Damari? What's next?
I would just add, I would agree with everything that Julia just said, but I would add that what's next is that we continue to serve the community. We continue to make ourselves available for you all and everyone in the audience. We are here to serve you, and we're here to help. So that's next. That's what's next for us, and we will continue to fight the good fight. So come fight with us.
That's good. Come fight with you. But yeah, a lot of great stuff, guys. I want to thank you guys for coming on today. This was really, really informative discussion. You provided a lot of great resources. freeevictionhelp.org. Legal Aid Society of Cleveland. I'll give you the website. It's lasclev.org. lasclev.org. Call 211 as well if you're not sure of your situation. So a lot of great resources there. A lot of things to think about, particularly with informal versus formal evictions. The whole thing. Thank you guys so much for coming on today. It's been a real pleasure. With Julie Wisniewski, Director of Housing Stability at the United Way of Greater Cleveland, and Damari Muff, staff attorney at the Legal Aid Society of Cleveland. I'm News Director Trey Modlin at WOVU. Thank you all, the listeners, for joining us today, tuning in, and I hope you guys take advantage of these resources, because whether it's you or somebody who may be facing eviction, and they may need these resources that they may not have otherwise known if you or someone didn't tune in today. So thank you guys for joining. Thank you for listening. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Keep it locked right here on WOVU 95.9 FM.